Fyziky cez farmáciu až po jadrové reaktory. Veda je všade okolo nás. Vítajte pri špeciálnej epizóde Vedátorského podcastu, kde sa rozprávam so Stefanom Buonom. Stefano bol na Slovensku kvôli tomu, že uvádzal projekt, ktorý bude aj na Slovensku vlastne budovať malé jadrové reaktory, čo je niečo, k čomu ste napísali veľmi veľa otázok, aby sme o tom spravili špeciálnu epizódu. O fakt dobrých otázkach sme o nových typoch jadrových reaktorov dostávali veľa otázok a zrazu som mal možnosť moderovať besedu, kde Stefano Buono teda rozprával o tom, čo sa na Slovensku plánuje a odchytil som ho na taký krátky rozhovor. Takže niet povolanejšieho človeka ako on, aby povysvetľoval, že aká je vlastne vízia pre takýto nový typ jadrových reaktorov. No a ako asi tušíte, táto epizóda je v angličtine, ale keď si otvoríte YouTube, nájdete tam náš podcast, tak on by mal vygenerovať automaticky titulky, ktoré sa dajú preložiť do slovenčiny, takže tam si trošku poklikajte. YouTube to chvíľku trvá, ale v priebehu dňa by to tam všetko malo byť.
I have mentioned in our podcast in many episodes that one of the important aspects of CERN is anchoring the talent in Europe. And you are a great example of this. Like someone who started in CERN and then basically started not one, but many important companies, and now Europe as a whole is basically benefiting from the fact that, well, CERN was there to start your career. So can you describe your story so far?
Yes, I came to work at CERN in the year 90 when I was still a student and I was doing my master thesis. Actually I started to work on the big science. I was fascinated by it. But in 93, our Director General, Carlo Rubbia, who is a Nobel laureate, he announced the idea to build new reactors that were safer, and safety was a concern at the time for nuclear after the accident of Chernobyl. So I was fascinated by this application. Actually, at the time, CERN was really a place for the big sciences, so no space for the applications. And that was one of the very few examples of where the science would have contributed to something in the real world. One example was positive emission tomography, an application of detectors into the real life of people. This one could have been fantastic. So I started to work with him. We discovered that possibility to make safe reactors could be the use of lead as a coolant. That was already used in the military application of nuclear submarines by Russians. And we had the chance, because CERN is an international laboratory, to exchange with the Russians and to transfer the technology toward the community of researchers in Europe. And that is what happened. So for many years we developed this design and we advanced the science, but that was not a good time to transfer this technology into a company. But one of the patents that we developed for lead had an application in nuclear medicine. So I asked the license to CERN of this patent, and that was 2001. And actually, at that time, there wasn't any technology transfer office at CERN. It's fun, but the big science in the past was not having a lot of attention into technology transfer and patenting and startups and so on. I had the first license from CERN, from the newly formed Technology Transfer Office. So I was kind of considered the first startup of CERN. But this startup had a lot of success because in 15 years became the biggest company in nuclear medicine in the world. And we listed the company on NASDAQ in US in 2015, and from the market, Novartis made an offer of $4 billion for the company. So that was possibly the biggest biotech sale of a French company, because the company was French. ever done so far. So very big result. So now I'm trying to do the same innovation in nuclear energy. So coming back to what I wanted to develop in the 90s, Carlo Rubbia, finally I think it's the time to do so.
What gave you the courage? Because you were trained a physicist and then you tackled engineering issues and business issues and so on. Because otherwise you can just ask yourself, well, if this problem can be solved, some engineer would have done so already. So what gave you the courage?
In the first time, I wanted to have, I considered that it was not a very difficult time for politicians to invest into nuclear, so I could have done it only with private money. But nuclear energy with private money is at the end of the 90s or beginning of the 2000 was very difficult. So I thought it was a good step to go through nuclear medicine, and I wanted to prove myself that I could be a good manager in order to do the energy application later. So I think it's the same courage that every entrepreneur feels when he wants to do something new. It paid off. Now I have a lot of experience, so I need a little bit less courage, but the challenge is possibly much bigger. Mm-hmm. So now I'm using a little bit of the luck and bravery that you have when you're young, and I use a little bit more experience and know-how, entrepreneurial know-how, to achieve even a larger objective that is making such a big innovation in the field of energy.
So in economy, we usually have the economy of scale. You want to make everything as big as possible. In technology, we try to make the things as small as possible. And the nuclear reactors are technologies which are supposed to make money. So how are those two basically different directions balanced?
Yes, we at the beginning, the nuclear technology was a state public technology, financed by the governments. So the invested money was less relevant than for today, where we want to develop nuclear for fueled by private money. And I think the nuclear got very success, even if it's not visible, because in a country like France, where there are a lot of nuclear installations, there has been investment by the government, but at the end, the electricity is very cheap. Same in Finland. Finland just opened up a new reactor, and the electricity bill for Finnish people dropped 75%. So that's interesting, because even if nuclear is perceived as being very expensive, still is translating into cheapest bills for the population. So that's an interesting aspect. What we are trying to do is to make a good investment and cheaper for the population, which is a little bit of a challenge. But to do this, we have to go smaller in scale. Mm-hmm. So nuclear was searching for economies of scale by building bigger and bigger. Now we have to choose the size that makes economical sense for an investment. And that size is such as the building is very fast. We needed to build nuclear reactors in 3 years, no more, so that the investment period is small. We need to make the size of the investment reasonable, because we can leverage a lot of private money if the amount of money engaged is less. So we are opening kind of a new economy for nuclear. We, as the small modular reactor industry, not only us, of course, and this is a nice challenge. I think it is the right time to have this challenge, because we need decarbonized energy, and we need in Europe energy independence. So these two new strong drivers can, with a different economical approach, can really make nuclear successful also from the economical point of view.
I think most of our listeners haven't seen a reactor ever. So what is small for you? Is it like a room size? Is a smaller reactor or?
Well, it's the biggest we can do with components that we can easily manufacture and transport. So that is small.
So something that can fit into container that can be shipped somewhere, or?
This is too small because nuclear reactors still produce radiation while it's used, activation and so on. So we think the smallest that makes sense economically for us is certainly for electricity production is around 200 megawatt. Because the larger components become a cylinder of 6 meters of diameters and 6 meters in height. So it remains very small. Then you need components inside, you need components outside, like even the turbine. It's almost the same size. So that is the side. You can go smaller for specific application. If you go to naval application, you need to go smaller. Space application, because you can build a nuclear energy in the space as well. So really you need to go smaller and compact. So there is an application, a size for every application. Certainly the 100 megawatt application can produce electricity, but can produce at the same time heat for the industry. And this is one of the very important kind of application that we can leverage on as a small reactor community, the one observing the energy, the industry that is using a lot of energy for like the steel industry and chemical industry and so on, that needs to decarbonize and is currently using gas essentially as a mean to produce energy cheaper.
When I told my friend that I'm going to this event, he asked me, what is new about this? Because we have submarines with small reactors, we have ships. So is it just they can afford to be, inefficient and costly, and you now are just trying to make something that is worth building? Or is it a different?
Yeah, I think that the defense industry, that is the one that fuels these small modular reactors, was a bit careless about civil application and cost at a certain moment. So they were searching for different optimization. Clearly, our application goes in the direction of absolute safety. That for us means passive safety. So reactors that cannot have any accident that is destroying the machine. That is, but only problems that can be solved with transient that don't create the nuclear accident of the past. And then, of course, the cost and the optimization of the investment. So we have different drivers. So that's why we are adapting this kind of designs to the civil industry. And in this adaptation, if you deploy a new technology like us, you have the possibility to make things like very cheap, very safe, and very interesting from an investment point of view. This is our challenge.
Now, there is an argument, and I'm not completely agreeing with it, but just want to hear a perspective. Aren't we trying to be too careful about nuclear energy? Like, way more people are dying by, the pollutants from burning coal and so on. So maybe we can accelerate it, the transfer to nuclear energy. It would be actually saving lives, even if the safety isn't there or isn't as high as it is right now.
Yeah, the nuclear energy so far has been the safest form of production of energy. So it is already safe. What we have to take care of is the perception of the public, because the perception of the public is opposite. It's a bit surprising, but it's not considered safe. Nuclear waste is considered a problem, but nobody ever was contaminated by nuclear waste, and there was never been an accident due to the nuclear waste. So, and the nuclear waste is contained. So it's incredible because you don't contain the ashes from the burning of coal that are producing millions of deaths. So it's strange how the perception of the population can really change the narrative on the technology. So I think we have to solve this. We have to solve this perception of the people towards the technology, which is a general problem. It's not only for nuclear.
And how can you do it? Because, nothing happened today at a nuclear power plant isn't a very good headline for news. So we are interested when something big happens, there is accident, something that spreads around the world. But every day where no plane crashes, no accident at power plant, this is a very bad headline. So how can you basically change how people feel about nuclear energy?
I think the youngest generation are helping us a little bit because the nuclear fear has been brought for many reasons. First, nuclear has to scare the population because of the destructive energy of a bomb, but also for something that does not essentially exist, which is the nuclear contamination from the explosion of a bomb that we saw destroying the world in the movies of the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. Then we had to defend ourselves from the oil industry that was putting shame on nuclear and enlarging the fears of the population because they were fearing competition from nuclear. And they destroyed the illusion of the world of that time that nuclear energy could bring benefit to humanity, and they managed to leverage on the fear on nuclear also to benefit for their industry. So, but the young generation, they don't have the history of Chernobyl accident. They have less of a history of Fukushima, and they find out that accident like Fukushima didn't cause any dead people for the nuclear accident, didn't cause a contamination that is creating a problem with the environment. So by discovering this, they feel a little bit strange because they said, so why we don't use nuclear energy since it's a form of decarbonized energy that can save the problem from the planet from another problem, which is the climate change. So they can contribute, but we have to also make an effort in informing the general public, the generation like mine that's still biased by the narrative of the past, the movies. It's incredible, but the movies made a lot of damage. There was an accident in '78 in US that didn't cause any death and didn't cause any contamination. Nuclear accident with no effect on nothing. But 2 weeks before, there was a movie, catastrophic movie, that described the same accident. And the result of this movie, of the accident occurring just after this movie, was that in the next 50 years, 50, US built only one reactor. They built 100 before the accident, one after. That is crazy for a movie. The Korean industry stopped to develop nuclear reactors after a movie, Pandora, that described another catastrophic accident with nuclear. It's crazy. The movie industry has created a lot of damage because they like the journalists, they like the bad news, the catastrophic news, and the things to describe that destroy the world and so on. So nuclear has been easy to do this because nuclear, unfortunately, started in the history of humanity with a bomb, so not a good start.
And well, I think 3 Mile Island accident might have negative death toll because some people discovered they had cancer because they screened after the accident, but the tumor started growing before it, so they just went to the doctor and their lives have been saved by this little chance.
Unfortunately, what happened, for example, in Chernobyl was that there were discovered more thyroid cancer that is caused by one element that is released during a severe accident that is iodine-131. But often in oncology, if you do more diagnostic, you find more tumors. But in the end, the number of dead people for this kind of tumor was exactly the same. And I'm talking about 35 years of clinical studies around thyroid cancers in the European population, and specifically in the population close to the Chernobyl reactors, so in Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine. So the evidence of the medicine showed that there was no consequences. Only a few, like 3,000 or 4,000 people are suspect. There could be a slight increase, but essentially is in the statistical fluctuation. So still is not an evidence of any effect on the population. This, if you tell somebody who's not read all of the relevant bibliography on this clinical study, they will laugh and say, "Come on, there are the Chernobyl accident created so many deformed children." This is in the mind of the people. Definitely no deformed children, not even half. One, it's a little bit difficult to go against things that have sedimented in the imagination of the people for so many years.
Yes. And well, you at Newcleo are working at small modular reactors. How do you see the future? Will you use a mixture of small reactors and big ones, or some countries will prefer the big ones and maybe small island countries will opt for small reactors, or some factories will have reactors on their own to generate heat, maybe not even electricity?
Certainly, I am 100% sure that there will be a mix of technology, and of course, not only reactors, also renewables, other kind of technologies. Possibly the market will make the difference. So successful, cheap reactors can maybe be more spread in the future than others. There is an advantage if you invested in technology, and if you have a big reactor, there is an advantage for a country still to build these big reactors because they lower the price. It's a huge investment for the country, but at the end they lower the price of the bills for the people, and they create a lot of jobs as well. So it is. And there are some good sides also in having large and costly projects. But the mix is is always the right choice, and mix that is adapted to the need of the countries. I will not build solar cells in the northern countries of Europe. It does not make any sense. Unfortunately, Italy has very little wind. So windmills for us are very expensive. We have some in the south of Italy, in the seas, but it's not extremely efficient, and you cannot serve the northern market where there is essentially no wind, which is the market today that needs more electricity. So you always have to adapt. And of course, the industrial use is a massive user of this potential user of this new technology. So we need to be adapted and to build a mix of technologies.
So last two questions. The first one is, during Starmus, I had an interview with Stephen Chu, also a Nobel Prize in physics, but expert in energy. And his claim was that at the end of the century, we can hope for a mixture of renewables and nuclear. By the end of the millennium, maybe also nuclear fusion. So do you keep an eye on this technology as well, or is it too far-fetched and in the future for now?
I keep an eye. I'm even in the board of a nuclear fusion company in Germany. At the moment, I feel very complicated to build an economical fusion reactor. Because even if many technological gap will be filled in the future, still is a complicated technology. So I see how simple is a nuclear reactor today. Is heating tubes and and steam generator and the turbines.
It's basically steam engine.
Yeah. So it's very difficult for me to imagine competitive nuclear fusion system. But maybe we need absolutely to develop this kind of system because when you develop a technology, you may have surprises. So I really hope that one day also fusion will play a role in the mix in the energy mix, because I'm sure there might be suitable application for fusion as well.
I said last two questions, but you reminded me a thing I wanted to ask. Is the progress driven now purely by engineers, or do you hope to see something new from physicists, like new mechanism happening in the nuclear that can enhance something? People in academia, how can they help? Maybe even theoretical physicists.
I am exposed very much to technology, and as a physicist, I must admit that the last steps is always done by engineers, and so it's difficult to predict because we have brought innovation in fields that we couldn't imagine before starting our activities as physicists. So I'm pretty sure that it will happen again, but saying when and with what is very difficult. Certainly, nuclear physics and fission, etc., is very simple, very well-known technology, and still we have a lot of application possible, like the nuclear batteries, using the energy of active material from the nuclear waste, for example. It's still engineering problems, not really physical problems. So it's good that the big science is still very active, because we need to have new ideas for the future.
So hopefully the perception is changing, and we are moving from the we are not afraid towards the we are enthusiastic about the future and the changes that are coming. And the changes have to be brought by students, current students. So what would you recommend them? What would be your message to our young listeners?
To the young listeners, I would really recommend to go into the STEM because all the innovation is massive in the industry, and we have a massive need of engineers, scientists, technologists, and so on. So if you want to work in the future, for sure, choose a STEM. If you don't want to work, don't choose a STEM because you will do it all the time. You will be very much requested from the market.
But that's encouraging. There's a lot of work to be done, but it's worth doing.
Yes, and also I really hope that more ladies will be encouraged to go into the STEM, because there is still a traditional lack of women in this field, and I really hope that ladies become enthusiastic about the scientific world and the work into the scientific field.
Okay, so hopefully in 10 years you will be able to employ them at Newcleo.
Yeah, we have unfortunately only 27% at the moment. It would be a dream to reach 50 soon, 50%.
So thank you for answers, and hopefully see you next time in Slovakia.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No a to už na dnes z našej strany všetko. Dúfame, že sa vám táto epizóda páčila. No a na budúce znova po slovensky s Jozefom už budúci týždeň v útorok ráno. Tešíme sa na vás a majte sa pekne.
Ak viete o klíme len to, že ju rieši nejaká Greta s komentárom blá blá blá, nájdete si náš klíma podcast denníka SME. Hovoríme v ňom o tom, prečo je táto téma dôležitá a zároveň nebudete počuť, že tu všetci zhoríme, ale hľadáme riešenia a s našimi hostiami sa rozprávame o tom, ako zmenu klímy zastaviť a čo vie preto urobiť každý z nás. A ak vás klíma už zaujíma, zapnite si nás tiež. Vysvetľujeme súvislosti aj hľadáme kontexty. Volám sa Katarína Kozinková a budem sa na vás tešiť. Klíma podcast denníka SME nájdete na sme.sk a môžete ho odoberať vo všetkých podcastových aplikáciách.